This is why I don't do live videos. Just edit this out, stick it in the blooper section. Oh, come on. The pipettes were literally rolling in my way a minute ago. Like, out of my way, out of my way. I feel like a bulldog in front of you. Oh, there it is. Never mind. Well, hello Glue Troopers, and welcome back to the TARDIS. So today I was still working on the T26, and of course, as you guys know, we got a lot going on here, so I didn't have a lot of build time today, but I did manage to get those wheels and road wheels and the return rollers all painted. You know what? I actually did something a little bit different today. I went ahead and did some live recording while I was working, and this isn't like staged or anything. I mean, I was actually working and say, hey, the camera's right there. What happens a lot of times, I get these ideas, and as you guys know, I don't script this thing. It's literally shoot from the lip. And I tend to forget things or leave things out, comments early in the day, oh, this would be a great thing to talk about, and I forget about it. So I thought, I just sat down and started painting the road wheels. And there were a lot of suggestions you guys had made, and I was going to try several of them. So while it was fresh in mind, I said I'll just set the camera real quick, just let it run, and see if anything useful comes out of it. And I think it is. I had a camera sitting on the table, so you mostly be looking at the model tank, but I did take some pictures that I can overlay. Anyway, let's go back to, gosh, not even hardly 2 hours ago, and then we'll come back. I'll be here. Well, hello Glue Troopers, and I'm doing something different today. I'm actually chatting as I work, and let me explain what's going on here. I had a comment from a model builder on the channel who said that, Max, if you're going to do those tank wheels with the black rubber around them, an easy way to do it is to go ahead and paint the whole thing black. The whole wheel black, then get one of those circle cutters. My wife picked me up one at Michael's. Lay it over it, and then hit it with the green airbrush or paint, whatever you're using, and that will make a real nice, very quick stencil. And I tried that, and it worked. It did a nice job, but I figured, you know what? Let me play with this a little bit. I've got a couple other ideas. So yesterday I had already spray painted the wheels green, and quite honestly, I'd forgotten that I needed to paint the rubber around it black or dark gray. So some of the wheels pop right off. By the way, I would not recommend using the Tamiya thin. It does not, there's not enough surface area there for them to grab for it to hold very well. I did much better using the traditional thicker Tamiya glue to hold the wheels on. And these bogies, as you probably may recall, they somewhat articulate, so you can pose the tank, but the wheels don't turn. There's no pin in there or anything. They just glue into place. So the wheels aren't going to turn, but you can use the bogies, the slightly moving bogies, to position them for a diorama. So anyway, back to painting these road wheels. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but I served in the Army, and I was in an airborne unit, but we did train with tankers from time to time. So I spent a fair amount of time, or a little bit of time, around armor. And I also have been to every tank museum and armor museum I can get to, or military museum. Now, one thing I've found is a lot of time on working tanks, and this will shock nobody, the black rubber that goes around the road wheels pretty quickly turns to a more of a dark gray. And that is because, obviously, of the wear and tear on them. But the sides often stay black. They get dust on them, but they don't get the wear that the face of the wheel gets. So what I thought I would try is I mixed up this very dark gray. It's actually just a little gray tossed into some black, and I had spray painted one of the road wheels black and then used the circle cutter that was recommended to spray paint it, and it came out fine. But the rest of them, I said, you know, let's experiment. I brush painted the rest of them. Of course, I think I said I'd forgotten when I painted them green and went in and glued them on the tank that I still have to paint the black. But I was like, yeah, I'll paint them in place. And it's a little tough to get it to a few spots, but overall it's fine. And of course, a lot of this won't be visible once the tracks are on. So I figured, you know what? Let's go ahead and add a little flourish. So I'm taking the panel line accent, and what I'm doing is just going around the lips on the side here, and this stuff is perfect for this because it flows right to where you want it to go on the side, doesn't really go anywhere else. And on this scale of tank, the rims are tall enough that I've had one little spot where it managed to get over the rim, and like that. And I grab my handy dandy little Q-tip and fix that. Okay, which one was it? I took my eye off the ball. Heck, you can't even see it. It's invisible. I guess there's no point trying to clean it up. You gotta remember, this stuff goes on, looks very dark, but it dries somewhat clear. And what was this one? So, anywho, and it makes the side of the road wheel just a skosh darker than the main wheel. So yes, I'm getting into a little hyper detailing there, but it really looks pretty good. Spot there to touch it. Now, I got one of them that's completely black right here that I painted with matte black, and then I've got one where one of the wheels is black and one of them is more of the gray, and the rest of them are gray. And that's not a problem because this one will probably be the spare that gets mounted on it, so I figured it hasn't been used, it would still be black. And the other one, just assume they replaced one of them, not a problem. And do the same thing with the ones that are actually on the vehicle. Of course, I'm only doing this on the outside road wheels, and it's just flowing into place nicely. Let's see if I can move the camera just a little bit here, or maybe you can get a little bit better view of what I'm doing. And I have to admit, I feel like Bob Ross, this is very relaxing. Everything's going on easily, and we'll just put as much black on here as you want because it's your model. You can make it anything you want it to be. You can paint the road wheels pink if you want to. Be a girl's and Panzer. Nobody judges around here. So, this is all very relaxing. Yeah. Just whack the brush there. I'm not using that brush. I'm just trying to do a very bad Bob Ross impression. Which I can't really do because I don't have a bunch of kinky hair. Got a haircut yesterday. Nobody even commented that on the comment section. You guys aren't paying attention. Nobody loves me. And I just flicked the brush and splattered a little of this accent line all over the paper. As a nice thing about a tank, if you splatter some of the black accent line or almost anything else or brown, you say, yeah, mud, battle damage. Oh. So, by the way, just a completely useless piece of trivia. Bob Ross hated that afro haircut that he had. That was not, though he was a retired Air Force sergeant and apparently considered quite the disciplinarian. That persona he affected for the show was just that, a persona he affected for the show. He also got sued by another artist who he did learn from, who claimed that he had copied his technique. And now I'm going to put just a little of this panel accent line down here on some of the machinery. Oops, too much. This tank's going to look like it's just what it is, a vehicle that's getting tested. Alright, now I also did the same thing with these wheels up here, because most of the pictures I saw showed that they had the rubber around them also. A lot of the kit models, even the master ones I've seen, these are just painted green, but apparently they, even in some of the images on the box art, everything's just that shade of green. But I've been around these types of tanks, and there was some rubber on them. And all right, we seem to have done that. Let me just touch these up. You know, the Pershing was not, I want to be careful how I say this, it turned into a good tank over time. It was put into battle before it was ready, and so it didn't establish the greatest record early on. But there's an old saying in aviation, never fly the A model of anything, and the same goes for armor, I'm sure. Remember when the Abrams came out, yes, I'm that old, that there were a lot of people that were going after it, and after it was Burton, Colonel Burton, Lieutenant Colonel Burton, I think, who had exposed some of the problems with the Bradley fighting vehicle. And then everybody, a lot of people in the media and stuff, went after the M1 Abrams. And that tank definitely had its problems, but these people did not know anything about armor. And they basically trying to get Congress to kill it and a bunch of other programs. And after the first Gulf War, when the Abrams distinguished itself in combat, oh man, I never said that. I don't know what you're talking about. It's a great tank. Amazing how people do that kind of thing. But I will say this, just so far, I think this might be my first HobbyBoss kit. And so far, I'm going to stay with what I said yesterday, that it's a very high quality kit. I'm very impressed with it. And alright, let me just touch that up. And when this all dries, the difference of the shading will be very subtle. Most people will never even notice it, but I'll know it's there. Well, that's just what I wanted to show you for right. Oops, uh-oh. One of my little torque tubes popped loose in here. You'll remember I said this actually has a real, somewhat working torsion bar suspension. One-handed to me, a bottle open. Move that over there so I don't knock this over. Guess it wouldn't have mattered. That one's empty. The lid was loose and it dried out on me. Good move, Max. I try to check my lids every night before I leave. You know what? Where this is at, I think the thin might actually do better. This brush has about had it, so I'm going to use a pipette to drop a dab on there. Don't get greedy. A little dab will do you, like Brill cream. All right. And since this has the open engine bay, you'll probably be able to see some of the torsion bars on the display. Now I'll give that a little while to harden. Once it's done, I'll come back and then I'll start gluing the road wheels on, and according to the instructions, then it's the tracks. And if you're going to paint something, do it now, because once those tracks are on. All right, so back to our regularly scheduled program. So welcome back, and now that the glue's still hard, I'm just going to let that overnight to set with that thicker Tamiya glue, but I like the way it looks. I also spent the rest of the evening working on the tracks, and I'm going to go ahead and use the vinyl tracks, and I used some of this AIM Products weathering powder, dark rust. I've used it on everything. I used it on the AT-AT, I used it on the submarine builds. It's and gosh, I've had this stuff as long as I've had the Tarbis probably, and I haven't even used half of it. A little bit goes a long, long way. But so far, everything seems to be going along okay. Gluing the wheels on was a little more of a challenge than it probably should have been, but that's partly, as I mentioned, I think I mentioned during the other segment, I used the thin glue, which just didn't have enough, I guess you would say, reach. And because I had pre-painted a lot of stuff, it didn't burn through the paint, so I had to take care of clean that up, and that's on me. Just use Max's shortcuts. So anyway, that's where we're at with that. These tracks are looking acceptable. They're not going to win any awards, but they're going to look great on the shelf. And let's see, tomorrow I'll start working on the engine. This is kind of interesting because this has a full engine bay, and you have the torsion bars underneath it, but no other internal details, which is fine with me. I'm not the kind of guy that displays models open usually, especially not tanks. You can only see so much of the hatch, but I just thought that was kind of interesting. But then, of course, you can open the engine decking, I'm sure, and make a much, a lot more to see down there. So in a way, there's a logic to it I can get behind. Because if you popped all of the hatches on the personnel hatches, you still wouldn't be able to see much, and unless you get the old Aurora photoscope. Hey, that might be a thing. Maybe I should put a little light in here and a little slide, figure out how Aurora did the photoscope, and stick one of those in there just for kicks and giggles. That'd be something different. Well, that's really all I did today, and love to get out here tomorrow and get a little more done. I need to run over Hurricane Hobbies tomorrow and grab some olive drab. I actually managed to run out, and I don't really need to paint the bottom of this. I might cover the wheels and paint the bottom to match the exact one that I get, but because I have several different various shades of green, but I need to, this is a nice kit, and the different shades of green on it so far, you can hardly tell. It actually adds a little character to it, but I don't want to get too far off the reservation. I want this to really look nice. In fact, I'll probably even build a diorama base for it. Oh, great. Now I said it, now I got to do it. And I've seen some beautiful Pershing builds that you guys have done, and I want to make sure I join the cool Pershing club. I don't want to have something I'm ashamed to show anybody, but it's a tank. I mean, come on. Tanks are usually, I don't want to say it's easy to make them look good, but it's easier to hide your mistakes. So that's where we're at with that. And guys, take care of yourselves. And as always, model on. Bulldog. Oh, there it is. Never mind. Oops. just washed my hands. I'm not going nowhere.